Scott Bessent is probably the single most respected, or was the single most respected macro investor in the world. Like, he really understands the markets, how they flow through to policy, how policy flows back. He's an extremely smart, talented guy. They have a coherent theory. I thought Howard and Scott did a great job in the last 2 episodes.
Absolutely, yeah.
Kind of explaining the theory. And the one thing I would just say, having, we all watched the first Trump administration, he is adaptable. He adapts to circumstances. And the midterms now are whatever they are, in political terms, they're 15 months away from,
around the corner.
Yeah, around the corner. So I think they're trying to do a lot as quickly as they can. But I also think that if after a few months, it's, 6 months, 9 months, it's not working, they will adapt. And I think that's one reason there's such an emphasis on reciprocity. In Vietnam came out and they lowered their tariffs on American goods. And that's good. And so I think the out is, maybe it's not going quite the way we hoped. We're going to declare hey, we have a series of grand bargains with these countries, declare victory. Maybe tariffs on American goods are slightly lower. Tariffs here are slightly higher. Feels more fair. And, move on to firmer ground of deregulation, balancing the budget, cutting government spending, and cutting government taxes commensurate with the spending cuts. So I think they're trying the risky stuff first. And if it doesn't work, they will tack quickly.
Yeah, that was my perception, especially after hearing Bessent on the All-In pod. Great job, guys, on getting those long form. And I think this is where the administration is strong. It's when they do a long form discussion and you hear their thoughts about it, it doesn't sound as crazy as when, all due respect to the president, when the president is like, I'm going to go easy on them, I'm going to go hard on them, and it's like a reality TV show and who's going to get fired this week. You actually have 2 incredibly thoughtful, I will point out, Democrats, lifelong Democrats around Trump. And I think that's like I had this crazy observation, Gavin. I don't know if you noticed it as well. Trump lost his reelection campaign and he filled his whole cabinet with a bunch of Republicans. This time he's filled his whole cabinet and everybody around him is a Democrat. And he's gone to a really unique concept here of how to solve the U.S.'s problems, which is get the working man and woman a higher salary and lower their taxes. This could be like an incredible grand bargain that Bessent, I think, is the architect of, and Lutnick is, the communicator and executor of. You think they have a chance of pulling this off? If you had to handicap it?
I hope they do. As an American, I hope they do. I think they for sure have a chance of doing it. They have a solid theory of the case. They need to execute well. I would say Doge's efforts are important. If you can really cut $1 trillion of waste, fraud, and abuse out of the government spending, that's good. We should all agree as Americans. Maybe Democrats, they want more government spending. Maybe Republicans want less. But for whatever given level of government spending, we want it to be as efficient as possible. Because if you're a Democrat, that means more services. If you're a Republican, maybe that means a smaller government. So I think they have a solid theory of the case. I think there's a reasonable chance it will succeed. But if it doesn't, I think they will tack quickly. And the one thing they can't afford is a recession. If they're focused on the deficit, a recession blows out the deficit. So they will be ultimately sensitive to these market-based forces, rates, stock markets, the foreign currency markets.
Chamath, you want to maybe wrap this up for us here as we move on to some of the other topics of the week?
John Arnold had a post this morning on X. He was saying the deficit this year is going to be $1.9 trillion. His best guess for 2026 was $1.9 trillion, and he was just kind of asking his followers what they thought. If you listen to Howard last week, what he said is, I'm going to raise $1 trillion and Elon's going to cut $1 trillion.